Hello,
everybody.
welcome to Adorama Live.
Thank you for tuning in to Adorama Live at NAB. We're coming to you live from Las Vegas, where NAB, of course, stands for Nubile Autobots Brigade.
No, it does not.
We are surrounded on all fronts by all the hottest young Autobots and Autobotettes, and they are marching in lockstep to a future devoid of humanity.
No, dude, it's just the latest
I'm
in production.
speaking to you at home. Protect yourself. Do you like your job? Do you like working in production? Well, get ready, because this convention is proof that the bots are here to destroy and replace you.
Well, I wish I could have a robot co-host. My name is Steve. I'm director, producer, and founder of Framework Productions.
And I am leader of the Resistance, the Jeff McKinnon, comedian, writer, actor, and guy who fears change.
We have given the internet a lot of action this week on Adorama Live, but who better today to show us how to plot and shoot an action sequence than the director of photography of Homeland, Zach and Miri Make a Porno, True Blood. He's Kevin Smith's go-to guy also.
Do you think, I bet he knows what happens to Brody on Homeland, but...
Dude, everybody knows what happens to Brody.
Nope. No spoilers. No spoilers,
Dude,
sir.
there's a statute of limitation on spoilers. That was like 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, well, some of us can't watch Showtime because their parents changed the login information.
Oh, what, did you messing up their queue?
They like SMILF.
Well, David Klein's work spans more than just Brody's death on Homeland.
Oh, come on, he dies?
Dude, I told you can't be upset about this. It was way too long ago.
You just ruined all of it. What are you going to do next? You going to tell me what happens to Luke Skywalker?
The Last Jedi was 9 months ago.
I haven't even finished A New Hope.
Dude, you say that loud enough in here and they will kick you out.
Oh, get a life, nerds.
Let's take a look at some of David's work.
Then you worked with him, what, it was like 10 years later on Clerks 2.
Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy.
Right.
And then we were separated.
Right.
By a studio system that
They're working on that?
Yeah,
thought we'd be better off apart.
Uh-huh.
And then we got back together 10 years later.
Well, and what's fascinating about it is that Clerks' budget, if I recall, it was like 28 grand.
Exactly.
But the Clerks 2
There's
budget
no audio
was
in the
like
house,
$5 million. What was like, I mean, what was the difference in production scale? Like, how did that feel to work on those two different projects?
You know, they're so different. You know what I mean? It was still, by that time, Kevin and I had been doing a lot of work with other people, and you know, I've been doing TV, I've been doing other features, and so when we got to Clerks 2, the $5 million budget felt really small. You know, it was still pretty tight. It was still a short schedule, but you can do a lot with that. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so people say that, you know, limitations in filmmaking can actually be a great creative device because, you know, you working on that film with 28 grand to work with. So how did that inform?
That's why it's black and white.
Right,
we couldn't afford to match the lights, to gel the lights.
Right.
So he wrote in the script that somebody had jammed gum in the lock, so we could shoot at night, and then we shot black and white because we couldn't afford to gel our movie lights to match the fluorescence.
Oh, that's genius.
It was genius because it kind of gave it a garage band kind of feel, you know.
Right, and that
a lot of his charm.
And that's the thing. I mean, like a lot of the charm of the stuff, the earliest stuff with you that you worked on with Kevin Smith is that like you guys are sort of making it up and using more like clever devices. Was that very like liberating to you as a DP to figure it out with him how we're going to shoot things? And
we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. Sorry guys.
There's one.
There was one.
You're allowed 5. You're down to 4, my friend.
Are you going to kick me off after 5?
Of course not. I love you,
great.
man. You're the best. You're the only reason why I'm here.
What was I talking about?
You were talking about how you guys worked out. You know the.
Oh, we didn't know what we were doing.
What you were doing, and then you dropped an F-bomb, and I got fired.
And yeah, right. We met at the Vancouver Film School in Vancouver, BC, and he dropped out halfway through the program to save half of his tuition for the movie Clerks. And
didn't I think of that?
The producer, Scott Mosher, and we finished the program. In the meantime, he wrote the script based around what he had. And he had access to a convenience store that he was the manager of, a video store that he was also the manager of, and shooting at night. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is early independent filmmaking. I mean, we just
Very
had a guest on, Eve Cohen. She runs Seed and Spark, and she was talking about building your community. So, and Kevin seems to really build his community. You're a part of it. You're a friend of his. Is that really how the Kevin Smith oeuvre emerged from? Was like the community that he built for all of his films?
Absolutely. I mean, the 10 years that we were apart, I would say he was really a part of the studio system, and mainly Miramax. But every film with Kevin is a family environment.
Right.
You know,
Miramax is also a family environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's talk about something real quick. When you are working with a director, you're a director of photography, and I myself am not a tech-savvy fella, but what's the language between you and the director? I mean, I imagine it differs according to project, but...
Absolutely depends on the director.
So,
you know, every director is different. Every director of photography is different. You know, some directors know exactly where they want to put the camera, what lens they want to use, you know, even some, to a certain extent, how they would like the scene to be lit. You know, and other directors leave it completely up to the DP, you know, and I'm comfortable with either. I did a movie one time, a low-budget horror film that was black and white and silent, and you've never heard of it.
I think I have. Is that one The Ape or Vulgar?
Neither.
Neither. Oof.
I'm telling you, you've not heard of it.
Okay.
It might be on one of those
doesn't
cards,
even know
but,
about it.
The director was a really talented artist, and so he storyboarded the entire film down to the lighting.
Wow.
Down to the lighting in every shot. And I saw that, and it was a thick book. And I thought, this is not going to be any fun whatsoever.
Right.
But it was actually really fulfilling because he didn't know how to do it. He knew exactly how he wanted every frame lit, every frame, you know, composed, how the camera was going to move or not move. But he didn't know how to do it. So at the end of the day, it was actually really fulfilling to pull what was in his head out and put it on film.
So, you know, I mean, so they can really like dictate as much as they want. I mean, what's the project where they gave you so much latitude to just be like, David, you know what? Here's the script. Go at it. Like, you show us, you bring your style to this thing.
Homeland.
Homeland's giving you, okay.
Well, the first conversation I had with the showrunner Alex Gonza, you know, shortly after I'd been hired, you know, he sat me down. We were talking about the look of the show and how it was going to change once I was taking over. And I asked him, I said, you know, who do I answer to in terms of the look of the show? And without missing a beat, he said, you answer to yourself, which was terrifying.
And then
tell me what to do.
Right? And he's like, now wander into the desert and find yourself,
Exactly.
Mr. Klein.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that directive obviously worked out. You were nominated for 2 Emmys, which, congratulations to this gentleman, nominated for Emmys for Homeland.
Thank you. Thank you.
What really, there's a very specific color palette that you're choosing with Homeland. What's informing that for you? Like, and I noticed you change it a lot. So, like, what's the feel? Is that coming from the showrunner?
No, it's coming from the scripts.
Yourself?
I mean, essentially, it's coming from the showrunner because it's coming from the scripts. When I took over, you know, I took over for a cameraman named Nelson Craig, and he and I have very different styles. But when I started season 3, I wanted to start season 3 the same way that season 2 looked at the end, and then slowly I would let the story change the look, and then I'd kind of take it over, and the story would guide us, you know, to whatever the look was to become at that point. And I've done that with every other season because we've never been in the same place twice since. You know what
Shooting?
I mean? Yeah, we were in Charlotte, and then we were in Cape Town for a season, and we were in Berlin for a season, New York for a season, and now Richmond for a season. Richmond and Budapest. So it's like starting a new show every year, and so it's got a different look every year, and it's all story-based.
And they picked the perfect guy for that because, I mean, we just saw on your reel, I mean, the difference in vibes of the projects you've worked on. I mean, you've got like that visceral violence from Red State that you and Kevin developed. You've got that like dark and sexy, you know, vampire look for True Blood. And then that, you know, surreal and kind of whimsical look for Pushing Daisies. I mean, those are so very different. Which one, do any of them align or speak to you a little bit more? Like, was one more like, this is a David Klein vibe for me, like, or like a fantasy for you to work on?
I would say most of the stuff is very realistic, you know, like, which is Homeland, and I thought Red State also. And to a certain extent, you know, the lighting in all of these different projects is very realistic to the story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I kind of gravitate towards material that does look real. Once something starts to look lit, you know, it takes me out of it.
Sure.
I'm done. And we do a lot of work to make it feel like we didn't do much at all or we didn't do anything at all. You know, if a lot of people noticed my work, I probably didn't do my job.
I mean, I noticed your work in Red State, and I'm still haunted by it. So I appreciate.
It's creepy, man. It's
it
a
is.
creepy movie.
But I mean, but Pushing Daisies is the one thing that it feels very much like a different style choice for the look. And I mean, a lot of the framing, a lot of the way that you use, you know, actors motion and camera motion. You know, what was the process in developing the look of Pushing Daisies?
Well, I didn't develop the look. That was a guy named Mike Weaver, who was the first unit cameraman. He brought me on to shoot some additional episodes and second unit, and then we basically alternated in the second season. But that look came from Barry Sonnenfeld. You know, he directed the pilot,
right?
And it was actually Barry and also the showrunner Brian Fuller, and they, you know, they had that very wide angle 4x3 kind of look going on, and the lighting was very fantastic, you know, and it was a fantasy, you know, and it played like a fantasy. It all came from Barry. He had a Bible basically of the look of that show and the lenses of that show and why, and you know, everything, almost every shot was on a 21, you know, and which is why we worked such long hours on that show, because every time you turn around, you're seeing the entire world.
Right.
And so you have to light the entire world, whether it's a set or a location or whatnot. And the actors were never looking at each other in a close-up.
Yes.
Because they're 21, so they're looking right in the matte box.
Right.
And it almost became a joke. We had little faces of the other actors that we would put in the matte box.
That is very helpful as an actor to not be like staring at something, or like when you're against green screen looking at a stick with an X on it and being like, I'm going to emote to this.
But that was there every close-up on Pushing Daisies.
Yeah.
They were looking at a piece of tape.
Oh, Chi McBride, I have so much love for you now. Like, what a nightmare. For an actor,
They got used to it. You know, it's tough at first. There's no doubt about it.
You do the gig. But, I mean, do you work on a lot of different kinds of equipment? I mean, I know that you use a lot of, Canon lenses. Are you using that on Homeland a lot of?
Since I started on Homeland, I basically changed the lenses slowly as the look of the show changed. You know, when I first came in, I started using Canon zooms, and it was actually the first show that I used Canon zooms on. And at the time, we were using Cooke Series 4 primes. The following season, we added the Canon Cine primes that were altered to PL mount by Matthew Duclos. We added those, and we changed the Cooke Series 4s to Master primes. And so that's kind of our quiver of lenses right now.
Okay.
Canon zooms, Canon primes, and Master primes.
Great. Well, then let's break this down a little bit more specifically, because we pulled a clip from season 6 of Homeland. It was episode 12. This is a sequence that got a lot of buzz on America's First. And I'm going to say to those of you who also don't have your parents' Showtime login for the last 3 or 4 years, there are spoilers in here. But what we want to do...
You're saying you live with your parents?
Shh, yes, maybe. I don't know.
In the basement?
They don't pay me to do this show. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this sequence real quick, and you can help us break down exactly how you guys set it up, and we'll have our mics are live here. So while we play it, if you want to provide any,
we should talk through it.
Yeah, we can talk through it as we play it. So let's go ahead and roll that clip right now and take a look at this sequence from America's First on Homeland. So I know at this point they were exiting this building. We had just skipped ahead in the sequence where the president-elect and Claire Danes' character were put in the back seat, and this gentleman is now in the front, facing down this brigade.
This is the end of everybody's favorite hitman. A lot of different locations. Also mixed some stage work. For some green screen you're going to see up here.
This is the season, obviously, you guys shot in New York City.
That's right.
I'm sure we really have you to thank for some excellent traffic that day.
It was my fault. It was my fault. This whole sequence was shot on Sundays because we had to lock up the streets, and you can't do that shit during the week.
Exactly.
You know? This was in Brooklyn. The other side of the building was in Midtown Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And there was a 3rd Street on the Upper East Side after he blows through that barricade where the car comes to rest. So 3 different exteriors. That's the 3rd exterior.
Now, when you're shooting this exterior, I mean, are you the kind of DP that works with your director and plans like an intricate shot list, like, this very, where you're capturing his POV, he's passing out, we're going through. I mean, is this something you built, or did you guys kind of come up with this as...
Oh, we wing it.
You wing it.
No. This director is Leslie Linkaglotter. She's the producing director on Homeland, and she does about 4 to 5 episodes every season. Okay. But whenever she and I are doing action, something like this, we're gonna storyboard it.
Yeah.
She shot lists everything. She shot lists every scene. Not every director does, but she does. And something like this, we're gonna shot list, because we had, like I said, we had 3 different locations we were using. We had stage work, we had driving work. The close-ups of Peter Quinn were all on stage.
Yeah.
Not the profile where he actually gets shot. That was done practically.
Okay.
With
like
Rupert driving.
And stuff?
Yeah, with Rupert driving.
Okay.
But just that front-on shot where there's no windshield, the camera's within, inside the windshield, that was done on green screen. Which is the only bit of green screen in this sequence.
I would never, it was seamless. Let's actually, we broke it down. Now, we prepared, we have a similar budget.
The inside of the car was.
Yeah.
What do you say? Can we take that and all
So we're going to build like a nice interior of the car. We've got our lovely marketing personnel from
Megan.
Adorama. This is Megan, everybody. Round of applause for Megan. This is our Claire Danes.
Give
She's
it up
going
for
to join
Megan,
us.
you guys.
And now we are going to need a driver. Does anyone want to be Peter Quinn? Anyone?
Who's our Peter
Any
Quinn?
volunteers?
Dom, you wanna be Peter Quinn?
Any volunteers?
Yeah,
I'm going to go
right.
with you, sir.
Okay,
oh,
great.
No. Okay, we've got it.
All right,
we
come
got
on
our
up.
Peter Quinn.
Let's go. We'll bring our driver's seat back.
So here we go. We
Gonna
got
put our
you
driver's
here.
seat right here.
So you're going to be up front. Now, we're going to show that David Klein did much more preparation on this sequence than clearly our hitman did. Who goes, you know what? I think a Chevy Suburban will take down a whole army
so
brigade.
Have a seat for a second.
Okay.
So that's you. That's you're boldly driving down a New York City block towards all these gentlemen. That's your motivation here, all right? You've got
Hold on,
the
she needs a
president-elect
steering wheel.
in the back. Let's give her a steering wheel
Change
here.
the steering wheel.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Now,
Hang on.
what you're not seeing here is this is the president-elect. Very important job. You need to make sure to shield her from all the bullet fire. All right, so you lay down. Keep your head down.
I think let's imagine the car's heading towards the wall here. The car's heading towards the wall so we can see from the side what Dave does. So I'm going to turn you here slightly. Carefully,
so I'll tell
we'll
you a
screw
little
you.
secret to start off with. Nobody's going to make Claire Danes and Elizabeth Marvel sit there on the floor of the SUV for very long. So,
well, this is Adorama Live, so we will.
Basically, on all the wide shots, you're going to see Claire, and you're going to see Elizabeth get in there, and then we're going to do some non-moving shots of Claire and of Elizabeth, you know, as early as you possibly can. Car's not moving. We're doing lighting effects and, you know, that sort of thing. And then she gets the hell out of the car.
She's done.
I mean, you're not going to make her sit there because she's not in so many of the shots.
Of course,
She's in just her shots, and that's about it. So, I mean, if
so
you want Megan to stay there, she can stay there.
Well, let's just do the interior setup. So, how many shots do you set up? Like, walk us through Claire Danes' thing before we kick her out of the set and let her go sit in her trailer. What do we have to pick up here in this soundstage?
You know, I think it was about 3 sizes right here.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You get as wide as you can inside the car, and again, you're doing just lighting effects. So you're not driving. You're throwing rubber glass. You know, the effects guys are throwing rubber glass, and then you go tighter and probably a 3rd size. You know.
Right.
And then Claire, get out of the car.
And you're not shooting this in a car. You're just shooting. You built. It was in a car.
It's actually in a car.
Wow.
Thank you, Megan. Megan, thank you so much for being our client. One more time from Megan.
Megan's wrapped for the day, you guys.
She's wrapped. That's a wrap on Megan, but we still have to shoot our hitman here.
Right.
So, first, there's a lot being done with him.
It's a lot, you know. Basically, you need to be over the shoulder, so you see the.
So up here, this shot here, this is
this is before the car's moving.
Okay.
So this is before the car's moving, and it's shot through the passenger door when he looks down the road to your barricade. Where's your barricade over there, my man?
This is our barricade here.
This is our barricade here.
As you guys can see.
Whoa, hang on here. Whoa, what are you doing? What have you done?
I'm taking down the brigade, clearly. Okay, so this is where he is. He currently pulled out of the parking garage, and he's here. So
exactly. He pulls out. He's parked like this, and the camera's right on this side. And when he looks to the barricade and all the little soldier guys, we basically did a little push in, you know, for his last moment. He looks back, he says, "Stay down," and then he takes off.
So then before he takes off, you're shooting here. What are you using to shoot into the like? What camera or lens are we looking at for this shot here? Do you recall?
I don't recall the lens, but I do recall that we had a handheld cameraman on a dolly on track pushing in. We do a lot of that on Homeland.
Okay.
It's a primarily handheld show, and a lot of what we do is handheld work off a dolly, off a track. So it still has the handheld look, but takes the steps out of it.
Right.
So
okay.
I remember we had our 8-camera operator, probably a 50 or a 65, on track, pushing in through that open window, the right side open window.
Great. So so we're moving along in this sequence. One shot that sticks out to me is when you are following the behind his move finally, where he's swerving. There's something on fire here.
This shot here.
This shot here.
Which you can see by the motion blur. It's a pretty fast shot. And I forget exactly what rig we had. I believe it was an electric car. That's my focus puller, Dominic Meinl, everybody. With
Dominic in the house.
With
Look
the
at
handsome
him.
haircut back there.
Thank you for being here, sir. He looks like he's on vacation. He's enjoying himself.
He's always on vacation.
Life is a vacation. I love it, man.
But
Thanks
we had
for
an
being here,
electric car that would go about 35 to 40 miles an hour. And it just chased the SUV down until it almost went through the barricade.
Okay, great. I love it. So now we've got all of these shots where he's actually taking bullet fire, and I know that there's some we go exterior and then we're going interior into the car.
Correct. And you know, like this shot here is from the barricade, the soldier's point of view. I don't remember if we had 3 or 4 cameras that day, probably 4, where we'd have a wide shot from behind the guys with the bazookas there.
Yeah.
These
right,
dudes,
right,
these
right.
guys, these are the guys that shoot them.
Right, this is their POV into his car.
And I remember our line was, we were on this side of the line, so we probably had a wide shot, a tighter shot, and then 2 cameras. This one right here would have been right about here in relationship to the street. And then we probably had another one maybe tracking profile.
So David, how do you plan an action sequence, especially with cars? For somebody that's never done something of this scale, like how do you plan an action sequence like this?
Well, like I was saying, we storyboard the hell out of it. You know, we storyboard every shot and then we shoot directionally. You know, just like you do with almost anything. Even if you're you're shooting 2 people talking, you're gonna maybe not storyboard it, but you'll shot list it and then you shoot directionally. And when you're doing an action sequence, it's important. Can we go back to one of the that shot of the car with the windshield that was all shot up? So you got to have multiple cars, you know, because your effects guys are going to be blowing the windshield. You probably have 2 takes per windshield, and so then you got to start over with a clean car.
And there's a
then this one, and there's a stunt man
and they're driving it.
And then this car becomes the car that's going to eventually drive through the barricades.
Do you know how they do the explosions in the windshield? Like, how do they make the actual bullet impacts?
We did a lot of tests because this was supposed to be a presidential SUV.
Sure.
So it would not be easy to penetrate.
Right, and it would look distinctive.
And so we actually did a lot of research from the shot that was over Peter Quinn's shoulder, and that may have been Rupert driving. I forget. It was probably a stuntman. But we did all this research where we looked up what does it look like when a machine gun shoots bulletproof glass.
Right.
And it looks like snowballs from the inside. It looks like snowballs. And what was really interesting was the sound that it makes is almost like a silenced, or repressed muzzle gunshot.
Interesting.
It's not like a bird flying into your sliding glass window.
Not even. Like
Happens
almost
to me a
like
lot.
a snowball.
Oh, just like a snowball, like you
Literally
said.
looked like a snowball, sounded like a snowball. I wonder if we could play that again. James, can we play that again?
Yeah, James, can we take a look at that sequence one more time? Because I love seeing it. And we can actually see everything in the amount of time.
I do believe that some of those bullet hits, some of those windshield hits may have been added later.
So here's the shots you were talking about that were they're kind of
Exactly.
profile.
And then we're going to push in on him right here.
Yep, there it is.
Oh, hang on. It's going to keep pushing in here in a second. There it is.
There you go. Is there a psychology you're using by going profile and then straight on?
Not really. It's more that we were close to his eye line when he was looking down the street.
Can you go? And I see also in the shot there, you're shooting almost behind him, trying to tie the characters together.
Correct.
Now this sequence is maybe 90 seconds long. You said multiple Sundays that you guys had to shoot because you're in Brooklyn, you're in Midtown.
Well, there's also so much going on. There's also a lot of, I think it was 3 Sundays actually. Because we had the parking garage with all the stuff that happens prior to this. We had this street right here, and then this second street that you just saw, which continues with the car crashing.
So you're dealing with multiple locations. You're dealing with losing lights, so you've got to keep that consistent. I mean, New York City, you can't even predict what the weather is going to be.
We were pretty lucky. That was February of last year, and it was pretty consistently overcast. And when it wasn't, both streets had tall buildings, so it pretty much blocked out all the sun. So it still had the same feel.
That's amazing.
So David, do me a favor here. We have our little Hot Wheels set up here. And how many takes, how far could you push a car? So like if, he pulls out of the parking garage, he turns and he comes down the street, and that's from your kind of angle back here looking back, right? Can you do this whole sequence until they hit the barricade in one?
What you do is, again, it's based on how many SUVs you have, how many windshields you have, how much time you have to swap out the windshields once they're blown.
Is Safeguard really a big, or is it they a big fan of you guys?
Oh,
the windshield company, they just come right out?
They love us. They bring champagne.
Oh, yeah, I imagine.
You do a few takes where you actually don't blow the windshield. You know what I mean? And if they use those takes, then they'll just add hits to the windshield. You know, but you do a couple of takes like that, and then you blow the windshield. You know, and you have 4 cameras going, and you scream right up to the barricade.
Do you know how many vehicles you had for this particular sequence?
No.
Is there like a standard order?
There's not. It all depends on how many times you're going to need to do certain things, specific things like blow the windshield. And you'll notice that the bonnet takes a lot of hits as well.
Are all these bullet hits practical, or are they some of them effects?
They're not all practical, but I would say 2/3 of them are. At least 2/3.
Wow, that's very cool. That's a lot of work.
So it seems like with Homeland, you know, I mean, when say like Spielberg does like Indiana Jones, you know, like when he takes over the truck, like what's pretty clear is that like he's making a choice to show little disparate cuts that like give us the sense of what's happening, but not actually practically executing that entire sequence.
Correct.
So in Homeland, are you guys actually like carrying out multiple takes, like he's driving down multiple times, or are you also going like, let's get in tight, show him blow the barricade, guy jumps? Like, is that how you work, or is it?
It's all. There's so many factors involved here that you have to be you have to plan it very meticulously. And, you know, like with the, I keep going back to the windshield, but we'll blow the windshield and the car will go to here, right? And then you might have 2 cars with blown windshields. And so you have then 2 takes of the continuation. Where he actually
when he
blows
actually
through.
impacts the actual
And, you know, that's why you throw 4 cameras at it, because you hope that you can get enough angles on going through the barricade. You don't have to do it a second time.
What's your philosophy on plotting action sequences? So
Say that again.
I'm glad you brought it up for angles. What's your philosophy? You have 4 cameras. We're going to drive a car through this barricade. What angles are you picking to cut this together?
That depends on a lot of different things, but for me, mostly it depends on the light.
Okay.
Because if it was a sunny day outside, then I'm going to keep all 4 of those cameras pretty close to each other. But if it's overcast and everything's pretty even, then you can really place them almost wherever you want.
Okay.
But it's still the same direction. You know, we're still going to do all 4 cameras this direction, even if some are behind these soldiers and some are over here still shooting down the street before we start turning around and shooting that direction.
So whenever you're shooting these, what typical lens package? You go in zooms? Do you go primes? Is it a mix?
Homeland's mostly a prime lens show. But if we are in studio mode, if it's a grip shot, I don't mind using zooms from time to time.
What zooms are your go-to?
Canon zooms.
Which are the cine zooms? The 30 to 300, obviously.
We carry 8, 2 of the big studio zooms and 2 of the compact.
Oh, okay. The compact cine servos, the new ones?
No. The 14 to
Got it.
47 and the 30 to 105.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now we've got here, and you're picking your angles. Is there an advantage? Do you typically like to shoot action a certain focal length, or are you mixing up lenses?
For action, you're mixing it up. But all the stuff inside the car with my friend here, you're still acting.
You are back on
there's your steering wheel.
as
That's a
our
giant
favorite
steering wheel.
assassin. Let's do this.
You know, I think it's always good to be in here with a wide lens. You know, it really puts you with the actor. It puts you in their point of view. So, you know, over the shoulder, not quite as much, but, you know, those shots that are right here where the windshield is could be a 27, you know, could be a 25.
So you really like to push in and get that world-filled, like, shot of, you know.
Exactly. Because there's a world of difference between having this size shot on a 100
of course.
and that same size shot on a 27.
Yeah, we
World
did
difference.
exactly that the other day here with Phil Holland, where we looked at 100 versus a 27 in the same focal length, like distance to or same subject frame. And it's very impactful. It's very interesting.
And, you know, on Homeland, we are always following, usually Claire Danes, you can put their steering wheel down. We are always...
Should we wrap our assassin? Let's wrap her real quick. Let's go ahead. Thank you so much. You're now
the best,
dead.
You're a very good assassin.
And you did a wonderful job. Nice round of applause for her.
I think you could say she killed it.
As you were saying, sir.
What was I saying?
You're saying Claire Danes and her coverage.
Claire Danes is always going somewhere, man. Driving somewhere, walking somewhere, and she is one of the fastest actresses I know. In her normal gait, she's faster than most actors.
She's quite clever.
She just walks fast.
Is she? I mean, you and I, we're not the tallest fellas. I mean, I'm a pretty quick walker. Is Claire Danes? She taller than us? What's happening?
She's about my height, basically.
She's our height.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's what we got to move these legs fast, baby. Oh, thank you. Thank you for pointing out the differential.
The reason I brought it up is because I like to be, you know, up in her face on a 27, but it gets too close because she's so fast. All of a sudden, you know, your operator and Claire, you're kicking each other.
Yeah.
And same thing behind. So it turned out we started, you know, shooting her at a 35 or even a 40, just so you have the right size and you're not basically
and you're not kicking each other in the shins and falling all over. That's and it feels chaotic. That's right. So that's where practical applications. That's serve
still,
more
you
than
know,
the
a 40 is still getting up there.
Right.
It's still not a long lens close up. It still puts you right in the action.
And I feel like, I mean, there are a lot of fans of Homeland who watch the show and maybe don't realize the time and the planning that goes into it. We've covered a lot of that, but just to give them a frame of reference, for that 90 seconds that they just saw, that you shot, what's the, like, how much time, we got the 3 Sundays, like in hours and numbers of shots on your shot list, what would you estimate went into 90 seconds of Homeland?
That's hard to say. It's hard to say. But it was, that sequence was basically 3 days, and I think some of the other ancillary scenes spilled into other days.
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's a certain amount of screen time.
Yeah.
And you don't get more days per episode because you have an action sequence. So all of a sudden, you know, you're spending 3 days shooting 1 page, so your other days get packed.
Claire better be on her lines.
Well, they just get packed, you know.
Yeah.
Because I say this all the time, but you know, if you're shooting a feature film or something like that, you're telling a story, and if you're doing a TV show, you're shooting a schedule. It's all about schedule.
Well, I would love for the folks here to ask some questions of Mr. Klein. If anybody in the studio audience has a question, he'd be happy to answer it about really any of your work, if that's cool with you.
Anybody? Anything about shooting action sequences?
Doing everybody jump up at once.
We have the man here.
I mean, I've got a million questions for him, so I could. Yes, sir.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, that 3-day, 90-second segmentation that you shot, how many takes, roughly?
Well, that's the other thing about action. If you, most directors, if you get it in 1 take, they're going to move on. You know what I mean? Because it's not heavy duty acting. It's action. You know, and you know, 1 take, 2 takes. If something goes wrong, maybe do a 3rd. But for the most part, with action, you're hoping to get it on the 1st take. That's also why we're throwing so many cameras at it.
For our online audience, the question was how many takes typically in that sequence or in an action sequence does he shoot? I have another question for you. There's a lot of movement in action sequence, especially I've seen like a lot of. How much is that is planned? How much of that is improv? How much are you relying on your camera op?
It's all planned.
So you're thinking this is a pan, the real hard shake, like got a lot of moving in this?
No, not necessarily to that, you know, to the, you know, I don't fine tune it that much, but you know that, you know, this shot is going to be a handheld shot on the dolly that's tracking with the car, you know, and by virtue of it being action, it's gonna have some shake, and it's gonna have some random shit that goes wrong that works,
right?
You know.
Well, David, I know you have a lot more work coming up on Homeland. Are there other projects that you're just, you know, chomping at the bit to tackle?
I just finished 8 months, man.
So you want to tackle a beach and a cocktail at this point.
Exactly.
I mean, he's ready. He's ready. He's already got on his beach wearing shirt. Your puller's ready to go. We're doing this. Well, to send us out, can you go ahead and just kick that guy through the barricade?
Yeah,
we want to see
we want to see the actual finished sequence.
I mean, we invested in all of this production value. We might as well use it just to send us out. A nice barricade. Nice break from David Klein.
You ready?
Boom! Boom! One more time for our guest, David Klein. Thank you so much, sir, for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Adorama Live, a really great show here with David Klein, ASC. Come back and see us at 4 p.m. We have Stephen Poster, the president of the International Cinematographers Guild, going to come on, and we're going to talk with him about a variety of things, including the future of the filmmaking industry. This is Adorama Live.
Cool.
Thanks, man. All right, great. So
This is the schematic I drew up. Simple multi-viewer HME into the hyperdeck. Routing the Teranex control surface. Reclock our signal, right, so they're gonna get the DMCC. Right resolution at the right frame rate. The Teranex 2D that does conversions, wireless return, segmenting the different parts of the workflow. Denser's on top of this cold box. It's outputting 23981. One return line for program going back out. Simultaneously, the iMac's also gonna be networked into the back end of the switcher. Debug them all at once. Hanging in there?
I mean, makes me a little nervous.
So, wrap it up. Shit, dude, we're just getting started.
This is Late Night Cat.
Brace yourselves. This is going to be a dense episode.
So let's talk engineering here. Okay. This is the schematic I drew up, and it's important to actually take a minute and write these down. You know, I usually do several drafts of them. This is where you really start segmenting the different parts of the workflow. We have a switcher and a mixer, and those are basically where everything centers around, right? So the switcher handles the video and graphics, and the mixer obviously handles the audio. Now you can do it a lot of different ways, but this is the way we're doing it. I've done this enough to learn that it's never gonna be turnkey. I'm not being able to get it into the switcher. So I have to figure out what's wrong. I'm anxious to get in and start loading it in. Never seen that knob come off before. See what happens with that. So we got 7 cables running out of the back of the switcher here. 6 actually for cameras. Run it across the top of the cold box, and we're gonna drop it down over there. We have our Teradeck wireless returns.
Every camera has to run, and it's often down into the basement and under the audience and then back up through a mouse hole. And the most important thing about running it is labeling both ends.
Labeling both ends of a cable before you run it. Can't tell you how many jobs I've been on that something majorly goes wrong and you run it out there real quick because you just gotta get, I just need it now, and something, cable or two gets unlabeled, it's a nightmare. Engineering will never work the first time. It'll always have something wrong. You always gotta debug it, and if you don't know what you did and where it goes, you're screwed. This is actually the most pleasant cable run I've done in a while. So I'm looping out of the monitors over here, right? So they're gonna get the DMCC at lighting, so they can see all the cameras. So this is our mobile kit that I use to direct on the road, but it also is awesome for live events. Basically all 5 cameras come into this multi-viewer, which is gonna be for the LD. It's got a power conditioner and 3 smart Blackmagic Smart Duos. And the reason they're so effective is they accept pretty much any frame rate resolution. This switcher is very, very, very temperamental about it. It has to be the right resolution at the right frame rate with the right interlacing. So I can see the camera here and go through the menus and tweak without me having to be there, and we can go through all cameras and debug them all at once. You just take a SDI signal in, then it loops out into the switcher. The latency on that is super, super, super low, so it's not gonna be a problem for me. We're basically looking at the exact same image at the exact same time. All right, getting set up here, dudes. Let's talk cameras. Camera workflow is where it gets pretty complicated in this one. 1080i 5994, which is what I think it should be. Nothing. Why? My rule of thumb is unify at the camera. Pop-up infrastructures, there's too many points of failure, in my opinion, to try and unify it somewhere other than at the camera. All right, so just finishing setting up our ClearComm HME intercom system. So it's kind of like a walkie-talkie, but a lot better. So now let's look at our cameras, and then we're gonna get Palermo down on camera. Check, check, 1, 2. Can you hear me, Chris? Here's the base problem. All the masters for new digital shows, which is what we're targeting, are 4K. So we want to show we can be compliant out of the gate. Is it the frame rate, or is it our resolution isn't what we thought it was? It obviously could be many different things. Your whole pipeline has to be 4K. The cable has to be able to handle it. Your media quadruples in size, obviously. We're trying to record 4K log in the camera and output 1080. I'm not being able to get it into the switcher. What we're opting to do is we're going to switch the show in 1080 HD. Let's try this. 5994I. Let me trace my connection.
The big question is camera's output while recording 4K.
Let's try 1080p 2398. Still nothing. Okay.
But that's the kind of thing that until you get those two pieces of gear in the same place and you test it, you roll and you plug it in and you see it in the frame rate you're expecting, because that's the big one, is frame rate.
I set the switcher to be 1080i 5994. The camera was set into 2398. Believed up until this moment that the C300's converted to 5994 on the output, but they may not. So now that we know that's talking to each other, let's try this frame rate in 4K. And I'm gonna change this to 2398, 1080p. So with any luck, that'll show up in camera 2. It does. Great, that's good.
Once you get that in and you see it, from there, everything kind of relaxes a little bit.
I'm gonna change this resolution from 1920 YCC 4210-bit. I'm gonna change that to 4K.
So I'm changing it to 3840 by 2160. With any luck, this will remain. So far, it looks like it has. Let's power cycle it, make sure there are no surprises. Everybody cross your fingers. Boom, that's a good sign. So now what we have, 4K in camera, 1080 in the switch at 2398. That's great. Now, the next step, what I want to do from here. I want the cameras recording in camera, Canon Cinelog 2. So the most dynamic, the most flat, gives me the most power and color correction in post, right? What we're doing now is we're just going through camera by camera. We're gonna go through all 5 cameras and configure them all the same, make sure they're all the same. We're gonna do it right here together. Go ahead and white balance to 4400 kelvins at 800 ISO. Hit the middle button again. Great, now go to the left one. Cool. That all looks right. We have to send like a program feed with graphics, like a dirty feed, into the studio, into displays on the trusses that the audience is watching in-house. So we got one return line for program going back out to the monitors on the truss. In the switch, I want a LUT. I want a linear color space at 1080. Output setting or overlays, and I go in, I'm gonna say go down to LUT, activate, on. Boom. So that whenever it displays on the monitors and the stages for the audience, it doesn't look flat and ugly. It looks like a finished picture that has graphics, it has everything.
Badass in theory. I just hope it works.
So this is what a Teradek looks like in a monitor. What it's telling you here is that you're getting video signal from the receiver, or you're getting signal from the receiver. We have an image, the cable's good. We need to figure out the transmission between the Teradek transmitter and receiver. This is most of our infrastructure, believe it or not, for the whole show. This is the ATEM Blackmagic 1ME production switcher. In here is a deck in which we're going to record the clean feed of the show. This is a router that is going to power our network, like between all the devices, because everything is networked together via Ethernet and talks to each other in the back end. And then this is a Teranex 2D that does conversions. In this case, what we're going to be doing is running the iMac into the Teranex so it can feed video to us, while simultaneously the iMac's also going to be networked into the back end of the switcher and be loading graphics as we go to the show. I'm going to put this larger monitor on top to be the line cut so we can all see it. And I've still got to do a little practice and research with the Grass Valley interface about how to do the DVE inputs for the images. I'm going to build it in the software and then go for the interface to cut it. Computer software is talking to the back end of the switcher. Check this and see if we can get this all connected and talking. We basically have 2 different main lines here, right? Obviously there's audio and then there's video. And they basically stay in their own independent worlds. The only thing that really crosses over is the iMac. So now I'm routing the Teranex, which is going to be the feed for the computer visually for video playback, into the switcher into input 7. So the Teranex is going to allow us to take that video, bring it into the switcher visually, and also break out the audio to XLR so I can send it to the mix for playback in the house.
Did you ask Matt to carry a keg? But not me. Because I'm a woman, you think I can't lift a keg? Because I'm sorry, are you laughing?
Well, we're 160 pounds, a little heavier than a box of wine.
Obviously, it's a pre-recorded element that we're playing in, so it doesn't really matter the record of the audio. It matters the audience's laughs recorded live. We have 6 different lavalier mics 3 audience plant mics that are in the truss to get the audience laughs. It's because I do not want to use a laugh track. I want it to be legitimate. I got the video lines run, but made a crucial mistake with my pre-planning. It didn't think ahead to run the XLR at the same time, so now I get to bring the lift back and run a second round of cable. So that's a good lesson. Should have taken an extra second and really made sure I looked over my schematics. I totally just missed the audio path. Thank God for editing, right?